The main thing that people need to do is have a process in place, have your plan, know the market that you're going to be targeting, have a team in place, and in a hot market, you need to be able to act fast and be confident in the prices that you're going to be presenting. And that goes back to doing your research, doing your due diligence, and being confident in when making a decision.
Definitely. Hello and welcome to another episode of Helpmebuy Property Podcast. Today we are going to talk about all the client success stories, all the crazy client success stories as to how that it went from bad to good. And we're going to talk a lot about the tactics that we use to acquire properties. Today in the podcast, I have my co-host, my great friend, and my colleague, Mr. Harrison Flavell. Am I saying your name right, Harrison? Harrison?
Well, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Harrison is our senior property strategist, one of the gun person when it comes to negotiations, when it comes to finding the right properties, finding the right deals for the clients. Talk to me, Harrison. How's your experience been? How are you today? Let's start there.
Yeah, going great. Enjoying the Friday. So started with a couple of coffees just to get the day going. Enjoyed the early sun. I see Melbourne weather now. It's raining.
Yeah.
So it's about to start raining, but enjoying my day.
Yeah.
How about yourself?
Yes. Look, it is a crazy day. It's been a crazy week, but it's been a crazy year, right? I mean, this year has just flown so quickly.
Yeah, we've been super busy this year. I've been lucky enough to work with over 100 clients. So
yes,
just been smashing.
Yes, definitely. And some of the deals that you have been finding, like for the users and listeners, like amazing stuff. Like even sometimes I would be like, I want one of these, right? So
yeah, no, I've been loving it. Just helping clients get to that next stage of their investment journey. And just, that's how I got involved with this industry. I started out with using a buyer's agent, and it just shows when buying the first property, how important it is to get to making that first positive decision to get into that next stage of your journey. Because if you make the wrong decision, it can set you back a few years. So
100%.
That's the reason why I got into this, and being able to help clients this year has been amazing, seeing them kicking goals. And
Definitely.
And as a company, we've been growing.
100%. And you've done some amazing work, and we'll get into that. I think there's a very important point that you mentioned that, don't be ashamed of putting your hand up and asking for help, right? Like commercial is not my niche, and I have a super great friend who does commercial properties, and I'll always look up to him, if I need any assistance in commercial properties, right? And it's okay, right? There are people there who are there to help you exactly for your needs. And if property is not your niche, ask someone to help you. So there's nothing wrong with that. Cool. Let's get right into this. And I want to kick off in this space around hot markets. And everyone talks about hot markets like Adelaide, like Perth. How does a typical day in your life go around when, you are using tactics to basically go around and, finding and buying properties?
Hot markets can be extremely challenging for people. So for me, having a process in place makes it a lot easier, and having the highest success possible is having that process. So there's a few steps that I use personally, and that the first thing is having a plan in place. So having a plan, you can tailor where the client is, where they are, and where they want to be. So with that plan, you can see what sort of property they need to get to that next step. So having that, whether that's being a cash flow property being over 6% or around that sort of 6%, do they need the right zoning for a development potential property? What sort of pockets are they going to be sort of targeting? And knowing what sort of property, then you can start tailoring what sort of suburb
Definitely
they're going to need. So understanding what sort of price point they're at. Because if you're looking at realestate.com.au and you're looking at every single suburb, every single property, you end up getting analysis paralysis, and you never make a decision. So having a plan is the first step.
It's a very important point that you make. A lot of people make that mistake, right? They'll jump onto realestate.com, domain.com, go to the maps and basically start looking everywhere, right? And the only filter that they have is the price filter, right? Yeah. And that's so dangerous, because then, I always use this analogy that, you're shooting the target first and then chasing the target around trying to hit it, right? And it's important that, you have a plan in place, you have a really good client understanding as to where the client is heading before, and that basically that understanding provides you the outcomes around what suburb, what price point, what yield, what type, what zone, all of that is basically outcomes, having that plan in place. So definitely, how does relationships works into all of these things?
The relationships is the biggest part. That's where we get the most success. And look, it takes years to build those relationships with the agents, but I'd say 70% of the properties we're purchasing are off-market properties. That's from having the strong relationships with these agents.
Definitely.
So look, it makes a huge difference. It makes life a lot easier, and that's how we're able to pick up these properties under market value at these incredible prices. And that's from...
So there's a massive stigma around this, right? People say that, in a hot market, you can't find, underpriced properties or undervalued or under market properties. And I truly agree with you, right? I think relationships play in such a way that, you are able to, nurture that relationship over a number of years so that you can extract that value when the time is right. I call this goodwill. You build that goodwill on a number of years. And I remember having this discussion with an agent once where I said to him, okay, if the market is hot right now, and if I don't get properties from you, then one day the market will turn, right? And then, I'll be in the driver's seat, you will be a passenger, and I swear to God, I would not pick up your phone, right? And that changes the table, right? Because what you're doing is you're making them realize that, hey, it's okay, but you have to put importance to the relationship. And so talk to me a bit about this. When you're going out there looking for deals, typically, okay, in a hot market, how are you navigating through, using various different, tactics around, unconditional offers, around, building and pest inspections, around cooling off to provide that comfortableness to the client that, hey, you're protected, but, we are, still very competitive in making sure that while our offer is lower, we're still, beating the competition out of the park.
Yeah, absolutely. Having the right conditions can make a huge difference to whether you secure the property or not. There's been multiple times where, say, for example, we have an unconditional offer and we might not have the highest and best price, but we're still able to pick up the property just because we've had that unconditional offer. Look, a lot of times, Australia, say 1 out of 3 properties do fall over from finance. So once you have an unconditional offer, the agent is more comfortable and then the vendor is more comfortable as well. So a lot of the times they will end up picking the unconditional offer, even if it's not the highest price.
Definitely. An unconditional offer for the users does not mean that, you're not doing the due diligence, right? It just means that all of that due diligence is done up front. You've done the building and pests, what's required for the house. You exactly know what the rental appraisal would be. You've got a bank valuation that sits behind you. The valuation is not going to come in short. You have checked out the titles. You've done all of that work up front to be comfortable and confident that this unconditional offer is going to be the nail in the coffin and kill the competition out.
Yeah, and I think that comes back to having the right sort of team in place. Because having the right sort of team in a hot market is extremely important. Having property manager, having the right solicitor to be able to review the contract, make sure all the conditions are in place. Having the right sort of team in place is extremely important. And that's having the right sort of broker, having the right solicitor, having the right property manager. Because in a hot market, you need to have the right team in place so you can move quickly on properties and with confidence. And having that, the agent's going to see that you know what you're talking about, you have the right sort of due diligence, and you can move quickly.
Definitely. Definitely. And there has been times, right? You think about it, 5 o'clock on the weekend, Saturday, you're chasing your conveyancer, and your conveyancer needs to be flexible and agile enough to, pick up your phone, 1, on a weekend, and 2, review a contract for you because that property is, going to close, I shouldn't say close of business, but close of the day on a Saturday, right? And so there has been instances where, you are using those relationships at the right time as well. And so I think people do underestimate a power of a good relationship, especially in a hot market. Price is not always what dictates, a lot of these things. Talk to me a bit about, some success stories, just recent success stories.
Well, we've had one even this week. So we're lucky enough to pick up an off-market property for an unbelievable price for around $410,000. We had the valuation come in at $615,000. So right there, we're getting into the property significantly undervalued. You've got that instant equity. You can do a bit of sweat equity as well. So a bit of a facelift on that property. This particular property as well is R40 zoning. It's in WA, so you can build 3 dwellings on this property. So from every angle, it's ticking all the boxes, and our client's obviously extremely happy. To be honest, I always wanted to buy this property for myself.
And this is like only 10, 12 kilometers from CBD?
Yeah, CBD. The rental yield's going to be over 6%.
Yeah. A true unicorn, right? I think, sometimes these properties, when you're buying, I think clients feel a bit edgy, not because it's a good deal, but, it's too good to be true deal. It's one of those, right?
Absolutely. And it goes back to knowing the market inside out. Once you know the market and you know what suburbs you're targeting, you know what sort of properties to target, then you really get the unicorn deals.
Yep.
That goes back to the relationships with the agents. They know what sort of properties you're looking for. They know what sort of properties your clients are targeting.
And this is an off-market deal, right?
Deal, yeah.
And that goes back to the point, right? That, the agent knows the market. It's not that the agent doesn't know the market, right? He's just managing relationship, with you. It's a deceased estate. They just want to get rid of the property. They know the price. They've bought this property for bloody $70,000, right? So, they are making, 10x the price anyway. So, from their perspective, it's okay.
Yeah, look, they want a clean, easy deal. They know with us that we're straight shooters. They know it's going to be an easy process. And some vendors, when they sell off market, they don't want people coming through their house. They don't want to do any work and get photography done. They just want the property to be sold as quickly as possible.
Definitely.
Our clients are open to those sort of deals, and yeah, we're happy to pick them up for $200,000 on market value.
Yes. And talk to me a bit about the one that we have again acquired this week, where there is a house in the middle. You can do house on each side, dual income with, there is kitchen upstairs, kitchen downstairs. Amazing deal again.
Another awesome deal we got last 2 weeks. So it's in an amazing pocket of WA as well. So it's a corner block, over 1,000 square meters, can retain the existing house in the middle and build a dwelling on either side. So this was another off-market property. The other thing with this property, it is dual income. So you can rent out the property upstairs, rent out the property downstairs, and the yield would be sitting above 7%. So
crazy.
Yeah, crazy deal. Again, another happy client. The valuation came in 50,000 above what we've acquired it for. So
yeah.
I
think one of my favorites, and this is me going back now almost like 3 months, and mind you, for the users and listeners, these are the deals that haven't hit the internet yet as success stories. They would definitely. But one of my favorite was where there were 2 titles on the block, and agent had no clue that there were 2 titles, and I'm talking about ID's property, because they'll cut it off, so please cut off the names. So I'm talking about ID's property. The 2 titles on a single block, and agent had no clue that there are 2 titles. We went in, did the due diligence, be like, well, hello, these are 2 properties. This is not actually a single property, right?
Yeah, look, another amazing deal as well. So sometimes the agents don't know the gem that they have. They haven't done the right due diligence. And we come in, we do all our due diligence even before reaching out to the agent. So worked out that there's actually 2 titles on this property where the agent's only selling it as one. So they've just brought the price down, where if they brought it to market, they did their research and due diligence, they would be able to list the price up here, but we've been able to purchase it down here.
Definitely. And that was a cracker deal. I think we paid 700,000 for 2 titles, each at 600 square meter block, somewhere around there. And you can basically sell them separately for 450 pretty much right away right now, right? And he was gutted because he realized that he could have done it himself, right? And got double the commission.
When they realized the contract's very signed by then, so they should have done.
Yes. And I think from our perspective, we realized that, it's 2 loans, and that's what the broker said. The broker is like, well, it's not single loan, it's 2 loans. And so you need to settle them separately as 2 properties. And so that's where we were like, oh, wow, this is a really awesome deal. One of the things that we have always sort of explored in Adelaide is the cooling off, right? And we have really, should I say, milk the cooling off period in Adelaide. Talk a bit about that, right?
Yeah, look, the cooling off period does bring an advantage, and people don't utilize it when they are either negotiating or doing further due diligence. So we will use the cooling off period either to negotiate a price further down, or just to complete our due diligence if we have to act really quickly on a property to make sure that everything's in place to secure the property at the right price with all the right conditions.
Definitely.
So yeah, we do use the cooling off period to our advantage.
Yeah.
Where I feel a lot of people, they try and do all the due diligence before, but then they end up missing out on a property when they do have that extra 2 days of.
Definitely. And I think ultimately what you end up doing is you're killing their marketing campaign, right? By taking their property away from the market, even if it's for 2 days, right? All you have done is, and it's like, I use this example. I was talking to my wife that, no one wants to eat someone else's food. And so you've taken a food, tasted it, and put it out. People will be like, I don't want it. There must be something wrong with it. And there might not be anything wrong with it, right? You just couldn't agree on the price, or it could be X, Y, and Z reasons, right?
You're right. And that's one of the biggest things. Once, for whatever reason, once it comes back onto the market, no one wants to touch it. So sometimes we've even done that and they've come back to us at a lower sort of price just because it's just killed the marketing campaign.
Yes. And that's a good segue into issues that we've had with properties where we've bought the property and, there has been some issues. Let's talk about one of those where, we bought a property for a client and the owner wasn't really happy. Or shall we kick off on the burn down property first?
Well, the burned down property is probably the biggest one, the one that kind of sticks out in my mind. So I still remember when I got that message from a property manager. I was in Europe at the time, lucky enough to be on annual leave at that time. And I got a notification in our group letting us know that my client's property had burned down. So this was a few days before the property was about to settle.
Yes.
So it was an amazing property as well, but for whatever circumstances happened, the house had burned down. So
yeah. And the agents, and so we had our local team going out there doing their final inspections, 3 or 4 days before the settlement, basically. And there was some work involved and crazy story, right? I think that I've seen a lot of stuff, in the property space, but a property burning down 4 days before the settlement is something that, I've never come across.
Insane thing to happen, but, it just goes to show having the right team in place to be able to fix those situations and have the right process in place is so important. That these things can happen.
Definitely. And so, just for the viewers and listeners' sake, this is what ended up happening. So, of course, the property was burned down. It wasn't in a condition that we could settle. The agent or the owner wanted us to settle because he was like, oh, I'll fix it. Typically the insurers, get involved into a lot of these contracts. They were forcing the contract on us. The buyer was really, really panicky. We had the right trust structures in place. And so we knew that, even if he walked away from the contract right now, there was no exposure because the property was locked into a trust. And so there was no personal exposures to it. But having said that, we went through, took that property away, rescinded the contract, got the deposit back. Yes, it took a bit of time, but we were there all the way through, with the client, basically.
Yep. And since then, we've been able to pick up 2 more properties for that particular client. And
she's over the moon.
She's over the moon, coming back for a 3rd property shortly. So
yes,
house burning down was, potentially a good thing because it's got almost 3 more properties since then.
Definitely. How about this particular deal? And I think this was late last year or maybe early this year, where we bought a property around, I think it was December, around similar time, where we bought a property for a client. And this is an interesting one. We bought a property for a client and the owner wasn't happy that we bought the property so cheap, basically.
Yeah, with that certain property, we had purchased it around $100,000 below what the property should have been sitting at. So the agent wasn't a local buyer, wasn't a local agent. So after he realized what he'd done and the vendor realized that they've sold it significantly below the market value, they tried to get the property not to settle by using loans. And
I think the main thing that they said that, they're not ready to settle, the bank is not releasing the title, it's a cross-collateralized loan. And so I've never seen a seller having issues with the bank for settling the property because, hey, clearly, you've had this property for 10 years. And so selling is basically you getting more money back, not less money.
Exactly. And we picked up what they were trying to do. So we ended up using, it was a bit of a game, it was a bit of a cat and mouse game. So we used our strategy, they were trying to use a strategy. So we ended up putting the caveat on the property. And then once the agent realized what we were doing, because each day that went over, they were getting penalized $150 a day. And it ended up being around $5,000.
Yes.
Added penalties. Then they're like, okay, these guys aren't going to let this go. So they ended up settling.
Yes. And it's funny, like I think a lot of these comes in through the contracts, right? So, for users and listeners, again, there are 2 contract of sales in Adelaide. There is one contract that favors that one contract, which is quite a sort of very unilateral where, it favors the buyers and the sellers unanimously. But, there is one contract which favors the sellers more than the buyers. And so the seller can basically not settle the property without any penalties. And so you need to be really careful when you are, looking and going through these contracts as to what is the rights for the sellers and the buyers. And this was, one of those cases where, technically you shouldn't be getting any penalties, but, we were basically sending them out reminders, and the contract said for every reminder that you sent out, you are allowed to charge $150. And, we were sending them daily reminders out, to basically rack in the money and, So yeah, it's quite interesting as to how many ways you can cut a cake to get a really good deal for a client. Some parting words. What would you say to a person who's looking for a property right now? What should they do?
So the main thing that people need to do is have a process in place, have your plan, know the market that you're going to be targeting, have a team in place, and in a hot market, you need to be able to act fast and be confident in the prices that you're going to be presenting. And that goes back to doing your research, doing your due diligence, and being confident in when making a decision.
Definitely. And if you are busy and if you don't have time, you know where to find Harrison. And, you can definitely come and seek help from Harrison. Harrison, for users and listeners, again, where can they find you online?
Yep. So you can visit me on Harrison Flavell at linkedin.com.au, at Harrison at helpmebuy.com.au. You can reach me at my LinkedIn profile, Harrison Flavell. You can reach me at my YouTube channel that's coming soon at Harrison Flavell. And you can just come to our website at www.helpmebuy.com.au. Or you can reach out to Moxin and get to reach out to me.
Thank you very much, my friend, for finding time. Hopefully more episodes, sharing more stories or client stories, success and not so success stories as well. It's okay to share some of the pain and the frustrations as well. For users and listeners, if you have a story to share, feel free to jump into the comments and share your stories, your acquisition stories, good or bad. If you have any questions, comments, do feel us and reach out to us. Our website. Take care, stay safe, keep smiling, keep investing. This is Moxin Harrison checking out. Adios.